steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to me.
There's something loose between my legs.
I don't know. Let go!
I'm heavier than a freaking boat.
Nothing he's could say could make that any better.
No more radio for the rest of the race.
I'm going home.
Hello and welcome to DRS FC, an F1 podcast by soccer nerds. I'm a soccer nerd. I'm André Carlisle here with two other soccer nerds to recap the Monaco Grand Prix. Meg, how are you?
You know, maybe F1 wasn't supposed to bring me joy this weekend, and I can just accept that because I have joy in the soccer world.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. Thank you so much.
For more information,
Kyle,
follow me on Blue Sky.
Yeah, there you go. Keep that far away from me. Jesus Christ. Kyle, how are you?
I am mentally and emotionally drained from sports, and it was mainly just between motorsports and soccer. And somehow it was a Memorial Day weekend, so I have the day off, but I still feel more drained than ever.
You know what? That's fair because I was actually like, I am so glad I don't have to work today. And I think it's just because I needed a day. I needed just a minute to relax, and I think we're getting it. Thank you to the troops, I guess. I don't know.
I got the Sunday night. I was like, I am exhausted, and I didn't even do that much. I was just watching different races and sports, and I am exhausted.
Friends, that is called We Are All Washed.
You know what? That's fair. We're gonna have to own that. We're gonna have to own that completely. We're just like, I just need a day. That's like something your dad says. So yeah. All right. We are going to recap the Monaco Grand Prix. There's a lot to talk about with this race. It was just as I think my line was that like they made a boring race dumb. So I guess like from the fact that it was dumb, maybe that's more entertaining than it just being boring. I don't know. We'll talk about it. Real quick, though, I want to run through the results, at least the top four, because as we said, if you really want to watch Monaco and the prestige of the grandeur of Monaco, you watch qualifying. That's what you pay attention to. And the first four were the first four. Well, kind of. The first three were the first three that qualified. Max got up there to fourth because of a grid penalty on Lewis Hamilton, which really should be on Lewis Hamilton's team. We can talk about that later. DNFs, we had Pierre Gasly, DNF, and Fernando Alonso continued to fulfill his prophecy of being the unluckiest driver ever and had the DNF as well. Kyle, your overall thoughts on the entirety of the weekend, and we'll focus in on the race, but just the weekend from practice to qualifying to the race.
I feel like practice was a little bit chaotic just because there was a lot of crashes, there was a lot of sliding. Obviously, with the C6 compound coming back, it was more of a how much data are these teams going to get this go around. And then qualifying was fun. Qualifying was exciting. That was interesting to watch. And then it got to the race, and it was just like the first 10 laps were fine because it was like, oh, okay, there's stuff going on. We have, borderline slide. Is that going to cause like a safety car? We had a virtual safety car. We saw some teams decided to pit absolutely early. And then the race just kept going and going. I was like, oh, this is boring. I'm bored. And I guess that, I don't know, I would give the whole weekend a D+ if I had to give it a grade. And that's being nice, I think.
Yeah, I do think that like if the whole weekend is supposed to build up to the race, if that's the race, it kind of sours everything else. So I completely understand that. Meg, your thoughts?
I think if you had removed Sunday and you had just gotten to actually watch practice and then qualifying, that would be a pretty decent race weekend. Like practice was really fun in a way that it is not normally fun because these guys were going out there and trying to practice for qualifying, which meant they were throwing really fast lap after really fast lap, which is part of the reason why we had so many crashes during the practices this time. But like André said, if you're supposed to be building up to a Sunday, then it's more of like a womp womp on a Sunday, right? It's just not... I had hopes that like doing something would change things, and like André said, I guess it wasn't boring, but it sure was stupid. And so there was some like intrigue in the fact that there was like a little bit of excitement and like, are they going to get the safety car they need? Like some of these teams really need a safety car to happen and it didn't. And so it was like interesting to see, but instead it just left all viewers kind of being like, well, this is dumb. Like I hate that they're exploiting the rules in the way that makes sense for the team, but makes the product less fun.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the contrast that they have with Monaco in this race, and it's existed well before this year. In fact, last year is why the rule change came in for this year. So like this has been a problem for F1 for a while, ever since this generation of car is just too big to overtake or do anything with at this really narrow track around city streets in Monaco, which is already a very small place anyway. So like I think the problem is the dichotomy, right? You have qualifying, which was genuinely extremely fun, like really fun. Like Hajar had an outrageous qualifying session. I was so happy for him because he hit the wall twice in practices, and then ended up doing so well in qualifying. It was great. And then you saw the McLarens go out early in Q3, and you're like, oh, they're going to get their laps out of the way and try and just in case somebody hits a wall, then maybe that's what they're doing. No, they did 2 laps. So they did their fastest laps on older tires than everybody else, which was something you can do because Monaco is a shorter track, but you have to have so much grip to make sure you get around those corners quickly. And there's a ton of them and really tight ones. It was incredible to see because you thought Leclerc had it. And you're like, Leclerc puts in a great lap. You're like, oh, this is incredible. He does it again. And then Oscar crosses the line. He can't improve. Lando does and really gets Leclerc by a 10th. And you're like, wow, that is impressive for hell from Lando. I think he got a lap record around the track as well for that lap. It was great. You go from that to the race where everybody's driving very slowly. Well, I say everybody. There were 2 reasons why people were driving slowly. Well, 2 teams at fault. Racing Bulls.
2 teams and a driver.
Yeah.
That sounds like a buddy comedy. 2 teams and a driver.
It does.
Because Max was definitely partaking in these shenanigans.
Yes, he was. Yes. Max did have his I think he just likes fucking with Lando. I really think that's it. I think he just likes fucking with Lando, and Lando hasn't figured it out yet.
I think also, like, he knows that if he's going to make the comeback, what he has to do is get Lando, like, unsettled. And this is one of the easier ways to do it, is to just, like, poke and prod and be annoying and hope that Lando breaks.
It was also funny because I was like, oh, at first I was like, oh, wow, Charles is really catching up. Like, how did this happen? And then he's hearing, yeah, Max is going really, really slow, which is slowing Lando down, not allowing him to go quick. And also he still has to pit. So it was kind of it was just more of oh, that's why. It's not because like Leclerc was, really pushing. It was Lando could not go any faster.
Yeah. So what we're talking about, in case you missed it, which bless you if you did, you made the right decision. If you watch qualifying and not the race, you did the race weekend correctly. But Racing Bulls went slowly on purpose. Liam Lawson backed everybody up because it's so hard to pass in Monaco. This 2 pit stop, mandatory 2 pit stop rule basically meant that he backed everybody up twice so that Hajar could hold on to the points that he had, pit twice, and then be fine, like stay in the points. Liam Lawson ended up also being able to stay in the points as well. When Williams saw this happening and saying, hey, this looks like a good idea to preserve the points, then they did it with their drivers too. Albon and Sainz kind of took turns driving slowly so that each could get their pit stops out of the way, rejoining, getting back in where they needed to be. And then Max was just being an asshole. That was basically it. He pitted once and then went all the way until the very last lap, messing with Lando behind him, knowing that Lando couldn't pass him or risk passing him, and kind of waiting for a red flag that would have like stopped the race completely and allowed him to change tires and then be declared the winner. That's basically what they were doing. It was just pure hope, but it was also just annoying because it was like, you're not really in the lead of this race. You're just kind of there and nobody can do anything about it because Monaco is Monaco. So that's what happened. That's what you missed.
The way these teams felt dirty doing this strategy is that Albon took George out for dinner after and posted a picture of him picking up the check. And apparently James Vowles texted Toto and said, like, I'm sorry, we had to do what was best for the team. Like, none of these teams like using this strategy. It's fundamentally antithetical to racing, but also they're serving getting points. And while what Williams did was disgusting, like if you want to put it in football terms, they played the low block in the worst, grossest way. They did some real Stoke City ass shit, and it is not aesthetically pretty, but it got them the points, and that matters.
I was going to say, this was peak Jose Mourinho terrorist ball that was going on right now. And part of me doesn't super mind that. There was like a part of it where I was like, this is not fun to watch, but I completely understand it from a team perspective, especially if you are Williams and Racing Bulls, where it's like you have to get as many points as you can. And in this kind of track, you have to do what it takes to secure it and make sure, as long as your drivers don't screw it up, you have to do what it takes. So I understood it. And when Carlos was complaining, at first I thought he was just complaining because he was not getting the preferential treatment of the two between him and Albon. I was like, well, then qualify better than your teammate and it'd be fine. But then was kind of like after hearing him, then Albon, then even like hearing all these drivers say like, this was not fun to watch. Like this makes it's manipulating results. I was like, okay, I understand the viewpoint. At first I thought Carlos was just complaining to complain. And then I was like, oh no, I get why they have to do it because you have to get the points when you are in this position where a race like this could determine fifth. But then at the same time, it's like, this isn't enjoyable for anyone, including the drivers.
And if you haven't seen, Williams is now in 5th place, Haas is in 6th, and Racing Bulls is in 7th. So it matters to them. And Williams has 54 points and Haas has 26. So there's a pretty big gap there. But Haas and Racing Bull are only 4 points apart. Like, it is still very contentious. And every one of those spots means millions more dollars for development. It does look like at this point, McLaren has definitely pulled away in team standings. They're at 319 and Mercedes is at 147. But Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari are only separated by 4 points. So it's still like a very competitive Constructors' Championship. And that incentivizes, I don't want to say bad behavior because I understand why you have to do this. But it's certainly not the product that Formula One wants to be putting out.
Yeah, and I actually think Carlos Sainz, like he found the right word to kind of cause the panic, I think, within F1. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future because he used manipulate the race. And that is different. Like that changes it from just being strategy to now we're talking about something that feels a little bit sinister. And as a viewer, it did feel a little bit sinister. It was kind of really unfortunate because at some point they even said on broadcast that Ollie Behrman, who was at the back, I think this was within the first 10 laps of the race. Ollie Behrman, who was in the back because of a grid penalty, he was at the back of the field. He was posting lap times that were 5 seconds faster than the leaders. And that was only because, and again, this always kind of happens because where you get on the grid kind of allows you to manage the race. It's kind of like, to bring it back to soccer, it's kind of like just game management. You score a goal, you're going to manage the game. Protect that lead, not take too many risks, try to manage it. You score 2, you score 3. The game just changes sometimes in terms of the tactics that you use. But this was the start of the race. Presumably, this is when everybody wants to go pretty quick. I mean, we did see Bortoleto pulled out a great move on Antonelli, wasn't able to hold it. Antonelli ends up going up the inside, and then Bortoleto hits the wall going into the tunnel, which caused an early safety car. So, you did see some drivers pushing, but you didn't see enough of that. And when you have a car at the back going 5 seconds faster than anybody at the front, Monaco.
And it wasn't just Ollie was doing that until he got caught up with the rest of the crew.
Right.
And then he was going back to being slower. And even with Lando Norris, we were talking with Max was going so slow. And it was I think the Formula One account was even showing the 10 laps. It was 115, 113, 115, 116. And as soon as Max pit, Lando's going 110, 111, 110, 111. It was just oh, yeah. And I mean, Lando even said it himself when he was in the cool down with Charles. He was because Charles was oh, I thought you were just managing your tires. And Lando's no, Max was just going really effing slow. And I think that's just the tough part in this race track. It is just one of those. And even with qualifying practice, there's so much traffic, there's so much going on, and it just gets harder and harder to really see how fast someone can go, which makes it frustrating. And then you get to a situation like with Ollie, and I think there was even a point where, I don't remember who it was at the end, they were also putting lap times that were just ridiculously faster than everyone else.
I think what really highlighted that was when Max pitted at the final lap, and Lando was on 900 lap old tires and then set the fastest lap of the race. He was gone. It was all right, well, I still have enough to do this. And that just really tells you he should, in no other race on the calendar, would you be able to set a fastest lap with your tires that old. It would not happen. But again, this is Monaco. The pace was so slow that he was able to do that. And yeah, it is frustrating. How frustrating? So frustrating that George Russell said, fuck the rules. I don't care what y'all say.
That
He was
the
driving
hardest
behind. He was getting,
George Russell has ever been. I was like, honestly, I respect it. You are a man who deeply loves the rules. You love to follow a black and white rule, and you were so frustrated that you were just like, fuck all this. I don't even care. I'm out of the points. What is another penalty? Whatever.
I love this from George, and I know there's been so much pearl clutching from some people in F1. In fact, I think even on broadcast they're like, "Oh, that's not right," and I'm like my reaction is for the people driving solely and like my reaction in terms of that's not right was for like Williams and Racing Bulls. It wasn't NMAX. It wasn't necessarily for this move because I understood this move. Like you're sitting there behind somebody stuck, you can't go any faster because they refuse to go any faster. They can go faster, but you're in such narrow streets where you can't actually make an overtake. It's got to be so infuriating. And think about how his weekend ended, because the only reason he was where he was on the grid is because his car just shut off in the tunnel at Monaco. Just decided, actually it was before that and he tried to keep it going and then it just died in the tunnel. So, like, he had a very frustrating weekend, and then he was stuck behind Williams cars. And so what he did coming out of the tunnel was just cut the chicane, just drive straight through it and said, basically, I'll take the penalty. Honestly, have we not heard Red Bull do this exact same thing before? Like, what's the penalty? 5 seconds? Cool. Just drive off, cover the 5-second penalty. We'll take it. I was surprised the steward said, no. We're giving you a drive-through penalty instead. That, to me, felt like... it almost felt a bit wrong, in my opinion.
It was narc behavior. It was definite narc behavior. It was like, we know. Right. Apparently, I was listening to the P1 podcast this morning. Apparently, they had gotten a specific directive not to do that, which is why they felt like they had to do it. But I respect them less for it because it's all made up. It doesn't matter. You've implemented the rules bizarrely before. This time, we all know the spirit of the rule. Listen, just don't let him be free. It's not going to matter anyway. I guess technically it matters. I don't know how many penalty points are like assessed for it. So I guess it only matters in the penalty point stance. Just give him some penalty points. It's so silly. It's so silly.
Honestly, and it was like George was saying, I have not enjoyed this weekend. Like my car died in qualifying. I've not had a good time. I'm going to enjoy driving around Monaco. And I was like, that was one of those where I understand completely why you do it. You've had a frustrating weekend. You may as well just say, F it. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm not getting points at it. None of this matters. So if none of this matters, let me just get through and and it was probably safer too, because then you're not having to worry about, well, someone bins it in the wall. All of a sudden there's, as we saw in the F2 race, one person hits the wall. That can cause everyone else to be out. So let me just avoid that as well. I respected George for saying, and then after he's like, maybe we should just do all these different rules and all these different suggestions. I was like, see, we need more of this George Russell, because this George Russell is hilarious and funny, and I like this George Russell.
You know what I thought was really funny about this too is that, like, especially if you have like a younger sibling who like learns from your mistakes, it's very it can be annoying, but it can also be very funny. So George cuts the chicane, goes through, gets the drive-through penalty. Kimmy does the same thing. He cuts the chicane. He's like, oh, he got a drive-through. Never mind. You can have the spot back. Like, he gave it back immediately. It was extremely funny to me to be like, all right, he didn't want that kind of smoke. He saw what happened to George. He was like, I don't want those problems. So yeah, I mean, I think to me, I do think it's important that it was like Meg said, like supremely rules following George Russell, who is the one who did this and was so fed up that he just felt justified in doing it. And I can't lie. I'm kind of with him. I wish it would have been I guess because they talked about it before, I can't be too mad if they punished it the way that they did, if they said like, okay, don't do this. But also the fact that they had the foresight to do that, knew exactly what they were like, what the race was going to, like a high percentage chance of what the race is going to turn into, that they had to say, all right, now we set these weird rules and everybody's gonna have to follow them. But if this happens, you can't then cut this chicane because we'll be mad at you. Like, all right, so y'all already know what a consequence of this might end up being.
I think this was the perfect summary of the Monaco Grand Prix. This is not enjoyable, so we are just going to say, F it. I'm going to just bypass all this because this isn't fun, and I will take whatever punishment comes out. I think this was the perfect summary of the race.
Yeah, and so the one thing that I do want to talk about from like, and Meg just kind of went through the points and what happened there. And the drivers, it really affected the point standings quite a bit because now I think Lando is only 3 points behind Oscar. So you've got that. And the McLaren boys now feel like, even though it's one race, it feels like the momentum has shifted from Oscar to Lando. And you're starting to see, you won't hear Oscar do the Lando thing of saying like, kind of talking into microphones and sounding like the saddest boy ever. But like you do see him hitting the wall a number of times. He crashed his car in Monaco as well, locked up, went straight. And then you also have, the moments in the race where he slid, hit the wall as well a couple of times. He said he thinks he hit more walls this time than his entire career in F1, which I think is true because I don't remember him doing this very often. So I'm kind of wondering, Meg, your kind of take now between the two drivers, because it's also not like Lando didn't have his issue. He locked up big time in a turn one. And I think on any other track, that causes him to get past. It just happens to be Monaco's Monaco, and he held on to it. What do you think in terms of the balance between the two drivers now?
I think it certainly makes it a little more exciting. I think the big question that we still haven't gotten, and I'll talk a little bit about like the end of the qualifying and kind of what our group chat looked like. I think McLaren is still not prepared to say who they're backing. When Lando had a crazy qualifying lap, and I will be so for real, that final 5 minutes of qualifying was fascinating because McLaren could have really screwed it up strategy wise, and to have Max, Charles, Oscar and Lando all in the final 30 seconds be going was pretty incredible. Like that was quality footage. But what our group chat was talking about was that after the race, nobody at McLaren seemed very excited for Lando. The only person who seemed to be reacting was Zach Brown. And we were joking that Zach Brown didn't even really want to be there. He wanted to be at the Indy 500. And so, is interesting because in name, Lando is the top driver, but it certainly seems like sympathies are starting to flow towards Oscar. I personally find Oscar to be a more compelling driver. I'm still not convinced, although I will say, like, if I have to give props, Lando, when he locked up on that first lap, I was like, he does not have the mental fortitude to do this. Like, he would have been... I assumed that he would hit a wall at some point. And he sort of got helped by the fact that he got to go slow behind Max, as we talked about. He talked about how the two-strap strategy made his race harder for him because mentally he had to be so focused. And I will say he gave a pretty good quote that was like, obviously I would have preferred a one-stop, but like the rules are not for just me. And I was like, oh, that's like a level of insight that I don't normally hear from you, a person that seems pretty self-centered. And so is kind of interesting. But I think the bigger question is like, what does McLaren do if this continues to stay close? There's a part of me that wonders if they I don't think they wanted Lando to lose, but I think they sort of wanted one of them to have a really bad weekend so that they could kind of clearly go from here because we're about at the midway point of the season. And yeah, it's just going to get harder if they keep doing 1-2s or keep doing, top 5s. And eventually they have to make a decision. They're going to say, well, we don't have a number one driver. We're just letting things happen. But like strategy is going to have to come into this at some point. And one of them has to be selected.
Kyle, what do you think?
I feel like we're going to get 2016 Mercedes. And it's going to be more in the both drivers are doing well enough that you can't really choose which one. Because I feel like it is going to vary by weekend, where I'm sure if Oscar would have gotten pole, that would have made things a lot easier for McLaren, and Oscar likely wins, extends the gap, et cetera, et cetera. But now we're kind of thinking it's going to depend on how each weekend goes, because I don't think they're going to pick which one until they absolutely feel it's necessary. And even then, if it's close enough, they probably will just say, we'll let them race. And I can see this being a 2016 Mercedes where it can both get very toxic and one of them accidentally or intentionally takes the other out, and you're getting to that aspect of it, because I think they'll have enough of a distance from Max where they don't have to worry. It's going to be the same thing where Mercedes had Vettel still kind of lurking around where it's like maybe there's that threat. And I think that's still kind of the case with Max, but I think in this go around, they'll have such a large enough gap that it won't matter. And I just don't know who they're going to prefer. And I think it's also tough because I feel like now is Oscar just mainly struggling because, I mean, Monaco's Monaco and the C6 are a lot more slick and cause him to slide a lot more. So maybe with like different tire compounds, it'll be better. I don't know, but I mean, Lando was very close to bending into the wall in turn 1. And if he does that, then I think that makes things a lot easier. So I think they'll just let it keep going until probably the very end, because both these drivers will do well enough that you can't really say we're going with this person or we're going with that person. There's not going to be enough of a gap for them to kind of say Oscar's the number 1 or Lando's the number 1. And this is who we're going to prioritize for the championship this year.
And that is my concern, quite honestly, because like you said, Max isn't like, he's not super close, but he's not super far away either. And my concern is what everybody wants. What I want to see is the on-track battle between Lando and Oscar. I want to see them go at it. 1-2, I want to see them fight for a win. Problem is, Max is only 22 points behind Lando. That's a race win. They take each other out, and now Max is right in the middle of it. And that concerns me quite a bit. I think what McLaren has to do really is treat every qualifying session like it's Monaco. Whichever one of y'all is in the lead, that's who we're going to prioritize for that race. Y'all want to be the number 1 driver, earn it on Saturday. Okay, that's how we have to do this, because we cannot risk these 2 cars crashing into one another and letting Max sneak in there, keep sneaking up and having massive point gains until suddenly either like you risk Red Bull getting that car right in any way where Max can honestly on his own just get it. And he's won 2 races this season anyway. So it's not like they're super far off. It does seem to be track specific, but we know that for Spain, a technical directive is going to hit where flexi wings are going to become banned essentially. And so like you have these things that are going to happen, and Red Bull is doing better in their development. I believe there was a new floor on Max's car last weekend as well. Like they're getting better. And so to me, you have to keep the advantage that you have. And that advantage is any one of those drivers in the McLaren. So whoever qualifies first or ahead, that's your driver. That's the one to go with. I don't know if they're going to make that call, though, and that's what scares me.
It feels like it's a definite management issue, and McLaren really had to start to deal with it last year, but then through circumstances didn't end up having to deal with it. And it is high time for us to figure out what Zach Brown does when he's not just being a hype man, like when he has to make an actual tough decision. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and I feel like even though at first we're like, yeah, Zach Brown loves Lando, would obviously prefer him first, but Zach Brown also likes winning. And I think he is someone that's going to look and is like, what's the best in terms of what allows us to win? And that's where I think he's going to make the decision. And I think it'll be more telling is who of the 2 does he trust? Because I think we all know who we trust more. But will Zach Brown agree with that? Regardless of feelings, it's going to be, do I think Oscar can win it? Do I think Lando can win it? And whichever one I think will win it is who I'm going to push and say, this is the one that we're going to get behind.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, there are a few other things that happen in the race that we want to get to. So we're going to take a quick break because I want to get to Lance Stroll being in the way. I want to talk about Lewis Hamilton's weekend a bit, especially like the soap opera that is him and his race engineer. I want to talk about that a little bit. But also I want to try to genuinely, which maybe some funny suggestions, try to fix Monaco. All right, so I know that like everybody's kind of doing this. Everybody's kind of upset at Monaco and in the race and everything, which again, I think it's just the result of everything looks so good on Saturday and then turns into what it turns into on Sunday. And there's nothing to be done about it unless we go back to like super small cars. It's really it. And that's not going to happen because it's a safety issue. So let's kind of talk about it, though. Are there things like I actually, instead of trying to fix it, let me just ask you the question, Meg. Can it be fixed?
Well, I will say, interestingly enough, some of the drivers have started publicly saying their positions on it, which I think is fascinating because they often haven't. George Russell, I think, gave no Fs this weekend. I think he really was living his best life because he came out and said what they should do is just make it a sprint weekend. There shouldn't be a main race. It should just be qualifying. It would still allow you to have Monaco vibes, but not force us to go through 2 hours of what is terrible TV product unless you enjoy looking at beautiful rich people doing things. And I don't think he's wrong. Like, I do think that solves the issue. It's just that F1 is so committed to the profits that they don't want to give up a full day of racing, even though I think they should. You know, like you said, Andre, unfortunately, like they can't make the cars smaller. This year they're going to be like, they're 180 centimeters smaller, but that clearly doesn't fix the problem. And so I don't know that there is a good solution. On the preview pod, I talked a little bit about how like I'm glad they're trying something, and I am still glad they tried something. Like it at least gave us a little intrigue, even if it ended up being stupid. I just don't know, like, unless you start being so ticky-tacky with the rules where you're like, okay, it's a 2-stop and you have to be going at least this speed and your teammate can't hold, like, you know what I mean? It just becomes so truly gimmicky in a way that I don't know that without completely pivoting to Saturday as the main event, what you could do.
Yeah, I heard like Joker laps and everything. And of course, Max has such a dry sense of humor that it's like almost too dry where it sounds like you're trying too hard. So he was talking about Mario Kart stuff. And I was like, yeah, we've been talking about that for years, Max. I thank you. Thank you so much for your humorous contribution. Kyle, what do you think?
I saw this and I don't remember where someone said it. If you're lapped, you're out. I think once you are fully lapped, your race is done. You end where you are. And that way, one, it opens up the track, so you don't have to worry about cars going slower, manipulating results. Two, once you start getting, like, it would be interesting to see, like, if a car realizes, oh, they're gaining on me, they're going to want to start pushing. And I think there's, like, a way to, like, make it a one-stop, but then also have it so that if you get lapped, you're out. It clears up the track. It allows the slow car. The only problem is it reduces the risk of that safety car, which could add more intrigue. But I think just doing something like that where emptying the track would be a lot more fun because then drivers can go faster. Then there's that, are you going to push to try and not get yourself lapped? Are you going to manage your tires? Like, what do you do? So I think that is what I would go with. Because then I feel like once you get to qualifying, the other thing is top 10 are in the race and everyone else is out. Like, if you don't finish in the top 10, if you don't make it to Q3 in qualifying, you're done. You don't get to do the weekend. And just those 10 cars are there as well. Because then there's a battle for points. There's battle for fastest lap. You get that extra point. So those are my two ideas. Lap cars get eliminated in the race. And if you make it to Q3, you're in the future race. And that's it.
We're in the no bad ideas station of this.
Absolutely.
I would like us to go back to shootout style qualifying just for this race, which is where one person was on the track at a time and they're just trying to go for their fastest lap. I think that would be super fun, and then make the qualifying style the main race or something. I know that that's not realistic, but shootout style I genuinely liked, and sometimes it led to some like kooky results if you had like one really bad lap, but that's what made it exciting, was that you had to be as good as possible in one lap, and that made it intriguing.
Yeah, I like that idea. Though my only kind of pushback is that, like, I don't know, like, I'm not a super technical like engineer person, but I do know that the track gets faster every now and then.
Yeah,
and so,
that was the problem, right? Was like if you ended up having the spot where the track had evolved, like you did get an unfair advantage, which is part of the reason why they've stopped doing it. But like it does add some intrigue. It does make some kooky results, and that was fun.
Hey, I'm here for a Sauber being in P3. I'm here for it.
Well,
reverse grid.
I mean,
reverse grid for the
That's
race.
another one.
Reverse grid. I don't know that it would
Yep.
solve the problem, but it would certainly make it interesting.
It'd be really funny seeing Max trying, like, how many of these faster guys are going to be like, I can't get past Lance Stroll, and Lance Stroll being in the way, causing a crash as well.
Yeah, we need to talk about his weekend, because good God, was he just annoying as hell. I think I like a lot of these ideas, to be honest. I don't know if F1 would ever do them, but I do think like the lap cars thing would be good. That basically makes it so like you could still use that as a weapon against others, but then if the field catches you, now you're all of a sudden at risk too, and you're the one who's been backing up cars. Now, can you really, like, if you're say this is what happened, say it's Liam Lawson. Okay, you got Max Verstappen behind you now. You backed everybody else up. Everybody else is out. Now Max is behind you. You think you can keep him in front of you, like, or behind you? Good luck with that, right? So I do think that would be interesting. My only idea is sort of like what George Russell said, because I think the reason that the spectacle is what it is on Saturday is because you've got every single car pushing hard through a practice or through a qualifying session, to the limit, getting as close to the walls as they possibly can, all of that, going fast, not worrying about eating up the tires or anything like that. That is your job, just to go fast on that track. I think you can still maybe do that and just turn Monaco into an actual sprint weekend. Like, yes, you have qualifying, but then maybe you still have like a 20-25 lap race on Sunday. No pitting at all. It's just go for it. Now, will that make it more of a processional as well? Maybe, and also probably. But also, it's a third of the time. So you still get to broadcast an event on Sunday, and it ends up being not a 1.5 to 2 hour just watching cars go around the track in order and all of that. Maybe you take up less time, but it's also fun. And hey, maybe you do get, because actually, I talk shit about Lance Stroll, but did y'all see his overtake on the last lap?
Listen, is Lance Stroll the top driver at Aston Martin? Many people are saying.
Absolutely not. Oh, well, I thought you were just going to stop it. I mean, listen, if Alonso doesn't have a car to drive, by default, it has to be Lance Stroll.
One of them has points.
That is true. But no, I honestly, I had to go on Twitter to see this. Apparently on the last lap, he overtook Hülkenberg. He came charging out of the tunnel and hit him at that chicane, went on the outside. It is impressive. I don't know why nobody else showed it, but I'm like, if you have like a sprint type of format and kind of like this is your last chance, like we know, like I said, Lando had enough tires to get the fastest lap. You could still charge through the field and try to make a move, maybe in a sprint type of format. I don't know. I'm trying to talk myself into it. I'm just like, honestly, for me, it just can't be a full race because there's no solution for it to be a full race without getting into a lot of the issues we've already seen.
I have an idea.
Ooh.
It's a ridiculous idea, but
my favorite kind.
You have a lottery. So you know how like the NBA has a draft lottery?
Yes.
You have the lottery on who has to pit when.
Oh, wow.
Or what tires they have to use.
Oh.
Because it would be real funny if all of a sudden Red Bull had the lottery, they have to pit on lap 5 and go on softs and they can only use softs. Like the amount of ways it would be hilarious. Because then there's always that one team that everyone's gonna be like, oh, this is a conspiracy. Of course, Ferrari or Red Bull got this. Oh, that's really convenient. Wow, Sauber got screwed over. They were this, team in turmoil. And they get the worst. They have the best odds and got the worst result. I think it would be really funny to add a lottery, kind of like the NBA draft. Because look, everyone's still thinking the NBA draft lottery is rigged. And the NBA is looking at it like, oh, this was perfect. We got all these people talking about it. We got the viewers. Yeah, we might have some ratings declines, but you know what? This worked. And people are talking about it, and that's what we need. You want to make a spectacle of Monaco? Gambling? Put it in one of those casinos in Monaco.
No,
I was just about
I'm going to take this one step further. Have a poker tournament to start the weekend, and however you finish is how you get to pick. You get to go in order. So you have the drivers becoming poker experts for like months up to Monaco, or blackjack if we want to make it even more like James Bond. Whatever it is,
just put anyone in the engineering team or like in the pit crew, like who's our best poker player. You like sees someone that does a rear jack at the poker table,
right?
Like Lord Stroll.
And you can sell tickets. Like I would go watch that shit. I would watch it happily. I don't give a fuck about poker on ESPN, but I would be all in if it was like mechanics talking shit to each other to try to get better tire preference. Hell yeah.
I have, you know what? I love this. I love this. You said it was ridiculous, but you know what? I'm being sold here. And I'm also saying there is a casino that is a famous landmark around the track, right? So I think maybe you lean in. Maybe you make it like a Price is Right kind of situation and you like Plinko chips or whatever. Like maybe this is what you do instead. Like, Aston Martin mechanic come on down situation, and they're just playing to try to figure out like who's going to get to put on the soft tires, who's going to get like the optimal strategy, a pit strategy or whatever. Maybe that's what you do, and you just totally make a game of this whole thing.
You have a blackjack. You have MBS be the blackjack dealer, and you have to. He's sitting there at 16, and you have 14. You're like, do I go over? Do I hit? I'm just saying, make it funny.
Kyle, you ruined it by introducing Muhammad.
No. Because think about it. MBS is there. You screw someone over, the odds of someone wanting to swing on him would be excellent television.
That would be quite funny.
Because there's enough people there that would want to pull up and just punch that man.
I'm tired of seeing his face. That's really all. That's my pushback.
But that's what I'm saying.
That one.
What better than to want to punch the face? what better than a Max crash out where he just runs up and punches MBS in the face? I would watch that. That'd be great.
You know what? And I think Max is like one of the rare drivers, the only drivers that could do that and still like maybe stay in the sport.
Yeah. And I would love to see one of those big burly mechanics in a tux in the fancy casino. Like that's also some intrigue. I want to see it. And so, yeah, it would. I like this. I think we've solved Monaco, boys. I think we've done it.
I think so. Like you said, no bad ideas. Please listen to us, F1, and make at least one or two of these things happen for next year. At least for the ratings. Do it for the ratings. You already know how that works. Bringing in Liberty Television and Drive to Survive. Sometimes.
Look, don't let Vegas get these ideas. That's all I'm going to say. If Vegas decides, hey, we could do this, it's over for Monaco.
Well, that's kind of the other thing is like Monaco used to be so distinct and unique because it was like one of, if not the only street track in F1. And now we have so many of them. And at some of the others, you can actually pass on the track. And so it becomes a bit of a problem now when you look at Monaco and like, why are you the outlier? But I still love it. I still love the location. I still love the race. I just wish the Sunday wasn't always like this. So I am pro encouraging new ideas, and I think we may have fixed it. Before we go into accountability corner, which we have to do because there are some very funny predictions in this one, we have to also talk about Lewis Hamilton's whole weekend. Before I talk about the bad things, I do want to talk about a good thing, or maybe just I suppose it's a good thing because I will never be rich enough to be able to wear anything like this. Did y'all see his pre-race fit?
He looked fly as hell in that white number. He looked fly as hell.
Not just his pre-race fit, but also when they went to the F1 screening.
Yeah, the motorcycle.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I mean, the pre-race fit is what got me though, because quite honestly, I don't even know what that fabric is. I think that's a fabric that like we don't have access to. Like only certain people in the world have access to that fabric because I ain't never seen nothing look like that. It looks smooth.
And the thing is, it's in his apartment too. Like he just has that chilling in his apartment. That's not one he had to like bring in. He just has that in his closet.
Lewis Hamilton out here dealing in mythical fabrics.
He absolutely must have been because I have no idea what that is. I couldn't even guess. It doesn't look like, I think high-end fabric. I'm thinking, some like velvet, suede or something like that. No, this looked like, I don't even know. Like, I don't know. I can't guess. I don't know what this was, but it looked good. So shout out to him. And now we talk about the bad. What is going on with him and the team? First of all, the really negative part was they got him a grid penalty after he did a pretty good job after the crash in FP3 to get himself qualified. Was he fourth? That's not bad. So you're behind both the McLarens and also your teammate who knows Monaco like the back of his hand, and that Ferrari can actually be good around there because they don't have to they have to raise the right height. Every other team has to also raise the right height. So that whole plank wear issue is not a problem, and that Ferrari can be what the Ferrari was supposed to be without the suspension issues that it's having. So like that's why it was so much better. And so I thought this was a good weekend and recovery for Lewis after FP3. And then his team tells him with Max Verstappen behind on a hot lap out of nowhere. They're just like, he's going fast. Oh, just kidding. He's going slow again. What? Why? What is the benefit anyway? Just let him pass. It's Monaco. Even if he is going slowly, okay, fine. I don't understand that. And I will give like Max props. He kind of went to Lewis and Lewis was like, yeah, it's the team's fault. And so Max was telling like in microphones, he was just like, it's not Lewis's fault. It's the team's issue. But I hated that. Why?
Just the incompetence. I think that's the part. It's just the incompetence of the whole thing. Because you're watching this, you're like, you're supposed to be this top-end team, and you're making mistakes that basic teams would not make.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the infuriating part. And yes, I mean, I'm glad Max was able to say, like, I mean, it's not his fault. It's not Lewis's fault. Like, he did not impede me out of, like, spite or whatever. He impeded me because his team is incompetent, and Max was aware of that. But Max still did what he needed to. He's like, I mean, I got a penalty for doing the same thing, so Lewis should get a penalty, which I understand. That's gamesmanship, but it was just, how do you screw that up?
Yeah,
like that's the part I don't understand from the Ferrari perspective. How do you get that wrong?
As a side note, I think it was really funny that the TV directors were like, ooh, they're talking to each other. What drama? And then you very clearly could tell by their like body motion that Lewis was like, my bad, dude. I'm sorry. That wasn't my fault. Like, I didn't see you. And that Max immediately was like, you're good. I didn't think it, like, you could tell Max clearly knew what happened. So it's just very funny because they like pivoted and zoomed in. They're like, oh, they're going to fight. Nope. They just were like nice, respectful colleagues. It was bizarre.
Yeah, it was pretty much like Lewis is like, you know how Ferrari is. Max was like, yeah, man, I'm sorry. I know. But then it didn't end there. During the race, Lewis said, how far behind am I? And they're like, Leclerc's on hard tires. What answer is that? Why can't they just answer that man's questions? I can't tell you how frustrating it is to ask somebody a direct question and get a completely unrelated answer. Why are they doing this to this man? I thought they liked him. Why do they want him to lose his damn mind in a Ferrari car? Like, I don't understand what is going on here and why they won't just answer his questions.
It was like asking, I say this is like when I ask my kids, what do you want for dinner? And then they go on this whole tangent. And then it was kind of like, okay, but what do you want for dinner? Like, right. I need to know that question. Everything else is irrelevant. What do you want to eat? It felt very much like that with Lewis, where he's like, okay, but how far behind am I? And I was like, oh, yeah, about 45 seconds. Like, why didn't we? Effective communication. Come on.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I think part of it is just that this engineer may not be a good fit for Lewis. And, like, there are lots of times that someone is a good engineer, but they're just not a good fit for that driver. That's not reflective on this person's abilities, although I'm not super confident in their abilities because they've screwed up quite a bit. And, like, maybe they just need to have a different person. And that's not the end of the world, but Ferrari needs to, like, commit to making that decision if they're going to do it.
But it was also the same one that was with Carlos Sainz. And it's not as though Carlos Sainz didn't have his fair share of issues with his race engineer in his time at Ferrari as well.
Yeah, and I'm just like, if your driver is requesting specific information, please just give it to him. Like, I know you have other things that are also important to the race as well, but you can get to that after you've already satisfied the answer to the question that they're asking. So I don't really understand just completely ignoring a question and coming back with unrelated information, because it doesn't matter at that moment. Like, what he's really focused on is hearing the answer to the question he just asked you. And then at the very end, I think the entire team went to the podium to celebrate Charles, but Lewis was on the radio like, are you guys mad at me? I was like, because he asked a question and there was silence. I was like, can y'all at least tell that man when you're leaving? So what are you doing to this dude? Like, I love Lewis so much.
Especially because this is not the first time.
Oh my God.
This is not the first time Lewis has had this situation where he's like, where the hell is my team?
And we will say, like, as a side note, like, it's funny, and I'm like, you know, glad the team was celebrating Charles, but like, Charles wasn't celebrating Charles. Charles was mad as hell. He was grumpy as shit.
I love this Charles. Like, he's such a fascinating character to me because, like, he was talking about why he loves Monaco, and it's basically the risk. He's like, you get so close. Like, he's almost like a daredevil. Like, he loves the challenge of getting around these streets with like 0 centimeters to spare on against every single wall. He loves it. But then you get second place when that Ferrari has never earned second place at all this season. And he's like mad about it. Like, he's so just classically French, leaning over in his interview, just talking like, yeah, it's not good enough. I'm disappointed. We're going to have to figure things out. And I'm just like, dude, you're P2 at Monaco. You weren't supposed to be this at all, given how that car's been performing. Like, but no, Grumpy Charles. All the time.
He is so interesting because in normal vibes, he seems like such a chill dude. You're like, he's so French. He just like goes with the flow. He's very handsome. He has a handsome girlfriend. Like, he's living the life. But that man has been in desperate need of a sports psychologist for years. When he was in a Sauber, they scored points and he was like, but it's not good enough. Homie, you're in a Sauber. Like, the fact that you scored points is incredible. What are you talking about? And so he does, I will say, he always is like a fan of the street courses. And I think it's because he likes the danger inherent in them. But also he's like unwilling to accept that means, yes, you will hit a wall, or yes, your car will not be good enough to pass someone.
I also think this might be a byproduct of like growing up in Monaco where nothing's good enough for you. You know, you go out, like you go to McDonald's and get a 6-piece. This is terrible. What is this? What is this? This isn't like the finest of seafood, or what am I eating right now? And it's like, okay, so let me talk to you about how the real world works. Sorry, guy. I apologize, but like sometimes some things are going to be a little bit below your standard, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you have to have this realization right now in life, but that's what it feels like.
I also am curious because it's not as though, like, obviously he wants to do well at Monaco. Like, he always wants to win at Monaco. And part of me would have figured, oh, he's going to be more relaxed. He's got, like, he's broke the curse. Like, he's won there. Now it's like the expectations are so much lower. Like, it's not all this pressure. And it was almost like he was doubling down. Like, okay, I won here last year, so I should be able to do it every single time from here on out, no exception. It was like, no, but you can be happy now. You don't have to, like, have all this pressure on you.
He's like, no, I won it once. Now I own Monaco. If I don't win every single year, it is a failure. I'm like, that is quite the bar to set for yourself. Honestly, if you can set that bar for yourself and not get depressed when you don't meet it, fine, I suppose. Like, that's just being a great competitor. But, like, also, please take it easy. Like, you did fine. You finished P2. That was impressive. Your qualifying was impressive. It took Lando doing what Lando did, breaking a track record. Okay, impressive. All right, it's fine.
He sounded so sad on the radio when they were like, Lando just got P1. You're P2. And he was just like, but at what cost? I gave it all. I took this shitty car all the way to 1 and then he took it away. It just, like, I respect my mentally unhealthy king. You know, like, I guess this is the perfect sport for you because you're always going to have something to feel terrible about.
Yeah, I don't know. That man in the interviews, I think my favorite was post-qualifying. I was going to say post-qualifying was the funniest part because he just had this look of like, I am so pissed off and I don't want to be here.
He is extremely funny, and I'm extremely here for it. So, okay, let's take a quick break and get to accountability quarter because there is plenty to talk about and plenty to feel accountable for, and maybe perhaps the bad way because, you know, we may or may not have predicted things that look silly in hindsight. So let's do that. Yeah, and when I say we, I basically mean me, but it's fine. You know,
I didn't cover myself in glory either, to be fair. You know, I was the Lulu corner, and I owned it from the beginning.
I had some misses.
True. You know, that's what we're here for. We're here to own our mistakes and try to get better, even though I can guarantee you it will not get better because I don't know how to predict this sport. And if I did, I'd probably make a lot of money gambling somewhere. But okay, podium predictions. Kyle, you had Oscar winning, you had Max second, and you had Lewis third. Explain yourself.
It made sense going in. I figured Lewis is feeling good off the car. He'll do well. Oscar's on a roll. Max is on a roll. It made sense going in.
You know what? Fair enough. I think Lewis did have a better, until the crash, he was having a pretty decent weekend. And I still think he had a decent weekend. You know, recovered the grid penalty, which you have to do. You have to pass cars somehow at Monaco, and he was able to do it. So even though it was off track. I had Lando winning. Look at me go. I had Oscar second and Max third. So I was just missing Leclerc, and I had Oscar in the wrong position. So not terrible. Meg, you had Leclerc winning. You had Oscar second and Max third. Also not bad.
I mean, but like, if you recall, I very Delulu was like, Charles isn't going to do this. Like, I didn't even believe. I just felt that, like, he deserved me to believe. And then he was out. He probably feels let down by me. I know you're listening, Charles. I'm sure you wish I was more confident in your abilities. And I think you did great in P2. Well done, my sir.
Fair enough. And then constructors scrap. We predict most points and least points with the caveat that you cannot pick the team with the most points, so no McLaren, or the team with the least points, and that is, well, is it Sauber? Does anyone have 0 points? I think Sauber has the fewest points. Everybody has points.
Yeah, Sauber has 6, Alpine has 7.
Nice. Love that. Okay, so yeah, we still couldn't select Sauber. So, Kyle, you said Ferrari, which is correct, and you also said Haas, which you would have had correct if not for that damn Esteban Ocon.
You know what? Shout out Esteban Ocon for getting there, so I'll take the L on that one. But Ferrari, once again, good job. I'm 2 in a row now for most points in the constructor scrap.
You are, and I'm impressed. And I also had Ferrari, and so there it is. And I also had Alpine, which when Pierre Gasly runs into the back of Tsunoda and Colapinto does nothing, not bad. kind of right on that one. Megan, I'm not going to read what's in parentheses. You had Ferrari and you had Haas, same as Kyle.
Listen, I put but maybe Williams question mark, and I will say, while they did not score the most points, they both scored points, which is pretty impressive for Williams, and I am proud of them, even if they felt dirty doing it.
Yeah, we all felt dirty given what had to happen there or did happen there. All right, it's Zoomy and Gloomy Boys. So what we're going to do here is we gave our predictions for who's the driver that had one of the, like, a really good weekend, not necessarily the winner or anything, just a driver who had a good quality weekend, and then also who has a really bad weekend. And we give our predictions, but then I also want you to give your actual Zoomy and Gloomy Boy. So Kyle, your prediction was Hulkenberg, and your gloomy boy was Charles Leclerc. Now, when Meg and I did the preview, we were like, I'm not sure Kyle meant this, but you told us in the group chat that you actually did. So, again, I ask, please explain yourself.
I figured Hulkenberg did really well last week. Maybe he can get some momentum. He got like P12. I was like, okay, if he does well enough in qualifying, which he's capable of doing, he can maybe get around 10th or 11th again. That was my logic. And Leclerc figured he was going to just be very disappointed. Something was going to happen, most likely a strategy issue. Not a bad call for Leclerc being gloomy, because that man was gloomy all weekend.
But that's the annoying part is I'm going to pivot to myself. I put him as having Zoomy Boy because he already won the same thing. And he should feel good about dragging that car to a P2. But instead, he has declared himself Gloomy Boy when he should be a Zoomy Boy. I will say my gloomy boy prediction, which was that Monaco haters will be sad, was completely wrong. Monaco haters are stronger than ever.
Yeah, I was kind of teasing Meg in the group chat about that. I was like, we've got a whole lot of fuel. Like the Monaco haters have eaten well. This, at least on Sunday, we ate so well. Didn't want the meal, but we ate very well. I had Lewis Hamilton as my Zoomy boy. Not quite. Kind of would have been there if not for the grid penalty. I think it would have been interesting to see how the two Ferraris could have maybe ganged up and done something interesting to the two McLarens. Maybe, keeping Max out of the picture as well would have been cool. So not quite. And Gloomy Boy, I had Liam Lawson, and quite honestly, not bad. I mean, he
I will say he is my Zoomy Boy of the week. I will give that to Liam Lawson. Yes, he got points, which has not done all year. He had to do a terrible strategy decision, and he did it well. I mean, he helped Hadjar get up to P6. Like, Liam Lawson got points and did what his team needed to. He did it with no issues. He did not put up a fight. He did not complain. Like, he seemed to have the right attitude. And I think for him, this was a rewarding weekend to get the points. And he got points himself. So he got points. He followed the team orders. Overall, this is probably the best week Liam Lawson has had, ironically, all year. Even if it doesn't feel like it, I will give him, and also we do beat him up a lot and give him a lot of shit that he does deserve when he does terrible. So I want to give him props when he does something well.
So is he your official Zoomy boy?
Yes.
All right. The only reason I'm not going to give him Zoomy boy, and I'm gonna push back a little bit, is that in interviews he acted like this was a very hard thing for him to do when driving slowly is something we see him do a lot at every other track.
You have a lot of experience making slow turns, sir.
Yeah. You've been real slow. So I feel like he was like, oh, this was so weird to drive like this. No, it wasn't. You've been doing it all year. I don't know what you're talking about. But fine, whatever. He did get points, so I can't really push back on that. All right, Kyle, your actual then gloomy boy.
I'm gonna go Kimi Antonelli. Crashed in qualifying, had the whole situation being stuck.
Yeah.
I think at one point he was lapped 3 times. Not a good time for him.
Yikes. Yeah. Mercedes just deciding, you know what? We're not going to do our pit stops. It'll be fine. We'll figure it out later. Procrastinating like I do. So I really appreciated that. Meg, yours actual Zoomy and Gloomy boys.
I think, because I don't want to just pick the top 4, I think Zoomy Boy of the weekend is Isaac Hadjar. He did really well. Like, he overcame some crashes, some bad stuff during practice to have a pretty decent qualifying and a pretty great race. Of course, he had to use the bad strategy, and that's not pleasant for him, but he got through it, and he remains one of my faves to ever do it. Gloomy Boy of the weekend is Pierre Gasly, who did not be Pierre Brakely, and that's just sad for him.
all gas, no brakes. Listen, sometimes when you have no brakes and at a place that uses your brakes a lot, you might just run into the back of somebody, This might happen. My Zoomy boy, I think I'm with you, Meg. I was going to try and give it to somebody else. I mean, the only other person I think could be Lando Norris, because I do think he needed this weekend. And I also think that his qualifying lap was very good. Sometimes they say like, oh, Max just pulled a wonder lap out of the car. Like nobody else could have done that. Like that's one of the best laps I've ever seen, all that stuff. I think actually Lando did do that. He broke a track record at Monaco and actually got over on top of Leclerc so that he could get pole, which put him up in the perfect position to win a race, which basically his whole thing is keeping a lead in a turn one. You get the lead at Monaco. You don't really have to worry about that. In fact, you can even lock up and still get the win. So I think it could have been him, but I also think Isaac Hadjar, what he did in qualifying, set him up really nicely and bouncing back from hitting the wall. And really, he's been the most impressive out of all the Red Bull drivers, non-Max division. He's been the most impressive one and the most consistent. And given the way that his career started with that crash on the formation lap, it's really cool stuff. And also why you let dudes process their emotions, right? He had a little cry on Anthony Hamilton's shoulder, and now look at him. He's fine. So all good. My gloomy boy, it is the unluckiest driver in all the world, Fernando Alonso. Unfortunately, you need your car to work if you're going to be able to finish the race with it and end up in the points, which he actually looked like this was a guarantee. After he, qualified where he qualified, you're like, okay, finally, this is going to be Fernando's first points of the season. And then his car just decides to stop working. I'm in tongue in cheek going along with the unluckiest driver because that dude has had some quite a bit of luck and he's actually been a very accomplished driver throughout his entire career. And honestly, you could even say that him even still competing at this level at the age is maybe not luck, but it is a stroke of fortune, given how many of his other peers that he shared the track with are completely out of the sport and even commentating. But it's funny, so I'm gone with it. Unluckiest driver, and if this unlucky streak keeps happening, it's going to be really hard to tell everybody. Actually, no, wait, Fernando Alonso was like amazing back in the day.
It is killing him from the inside, though. Like he is such a psychotic competitor that he is just. I'm surprised we haven't heard him go berserk on a radio yet.
That's what I was going to say. Fernando Alonso has a history of not ending things well with teams, and I'm just waiting. I'm like, it's got to happen at some point this year with Aston Martin.
I mean, quite honestly, he's just waiting to drive Adrian Newey car. That's it. So he's just kind of taking this. I'm sure it is very frustrating, but he is trying so hard not to jeopardize his position at all. Now, scoring some points may or may not be a thing he might want to think about doing. Like we said, there could be that whole please don't score points this year. We would rather have the wind tunnel time. I did hear that Adrian Newey was really disappointed with correlation between, I don't remember which technical thing it was, but there is a correlation problem they're trying to work through as well with all their new fancy equipment. I'm sure they will get it right, but the more hours you can spend to get it right, the better the opportunity is for somebody like Adrian Newey to understand it and propose a solution. So maybe not getting points is him having success this season. Who knows? But also in practice, race to race, it doesn't look very good. But he's holding out for 2026, and we will see. Okay, that's it for Monaco. Hopefully we've solved it. Maybe next year we'll see the casino-related suggestions that we had. And if so, you heard them here first. You're welcome. I also say we are going to drop a preview of the next race because it is coming up this weekend. It's the last of another triple header. It is one of my very favorite tracks, Barcelona. I am very excited for this race. I'm very excited for this track and the tests that it's going to give to the drivers. So I cannot wait to preview that. But until then, for Kyle and Meg, I'm André. Vroom, vroom.
Vroom, vroom.
Vroom, vroom.
Actually, I was kind of waiting for one of y'all to back up the pack and not say vroom, vroom for another 5 or 10 seconds.
Include this in there, please.